One, two, three. Welcome to Myślozbrodnia, to Thoughtcrime, to our podcast and to our very first episode in English. And welcome to our very special guest, Helena Kerschner, a detransitioner, somebody who used to be trans, one could say, somebody who is a woman, a happy woman now, as much as I understand, and who has said yes to our podcast, and we are very, very thankful for it. Dzień dobry, Helena.
Dzień dobry.
Helena is half Polish, so as much as I understand, she gets Polish, but not all of it. So we decided to do it in English. But Helena, tell me, what can you say in Polish?
I can say very basic things, ale mogę wszystko rozumieć, ale nie mogę mówić sama, bo mój polski jest bardzo słaby, ale jak ty byś mówił po polsku, to ja bym zrozumiała dużo.
Ja jestem pod wielkim wrażeniem. Ja myślałem, że ty potrafisz powiedzieć tylko dzień dobry, do widzenia, kocham cię, bo to są wszystko te rzeczy, prawda, które uczysz się, kiedy nie mieszkasz w Polsce, ale jesteś Polakiem lub Polką. But we decided to have to do it in English, so let's do it this way. Some people might wonder, who is a detransitioner? How would you describe it? Who is a detransitioner?
I think most people kind of define it as someone who took medical steps and then, reversed or stopped those medical steps, or maybe took medical steps and then stopped identifying as transgender. So that's what I did. I took testosterone for a year and a half. And then at that point, I realized that I did not want to do that anymore. And I stopped the testosterone and I went back to looking like a girl.
You are young enough so that I can ask you, how old are you?
I'm 23.
I am, you look even younger, but then you are 23 now. And then, how long ago is it that you took testosterone?
About 4 years. I stopped in February or March of 2018.
I understand. But then, okay, so that's neither very early on, nor is it very late, right? Because some people start even younger, with hormone blockers, which are actually hormones themselves. Mm-hmm. And then some people do it way later in life. But then, what seems, interesting or special to me is that you did it at this time of your life. What was before? When you were a child, did you consider yourself to be transgender when you were a little girl?
No, I didn't. So I never thought about that when I was a child. I even remember there being, when I was maybe 11 or 12 years old, there was this song. I don't remember who sings the song, but it said something like, if I was a boy, and all the girls in my class were singing this song. And I remember listening to them and thinking why would you want to be a boy? That makes no sense. So I never had those kinds of thoughts as a child. It was only after I found the kind of gender ideology online that I started thinking about it that way.
That's even weirder, right? Because from what I've heard from many trans people is that they consider themselves to be the opposite or the other or some other gender or sex at a very young age. And then it seems to be persistent with them. But then you say at the age of 11, you thought that wanting to be a boy when you are a girl is not possible, right? Or something stupid.
Not possible and just weird. I didn't understand why a girl would want to be a boy. That just didn't make sense to me.
So would you say you were happy or you had no complaints? You were happy being a girl?
Yeah, I didn't have any problem.
At the age of 11?
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with being a girl.
What about, for example, stereotypical girly or boyish activities, because this is what we hear, what we hear a lot, right? It's like there is a girl who likes to play with cars, and this must mean that she's a boy secretly somehow.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing for me. I wasn't even really like that much of a tomboy or anything. Like I wasn't like that. I mean, I don't know if I was like super feminine growing up. I had, all sorts of interests, but it wasn't like a persistent preference for male typical toys or anything like that. I was just kind of a normal girl.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a little brother.
You have a little brother. When I was growing up, I had a little sister. And what's a bit scary and what's a bit funny to me is the idea that if I was growing up right now, I might be considered, but if my parents were, let's say, not conservative and Catholic, the way they were. My father is sadly dead. He died some years ago. But my parents were always Catholic, always conservative. But on the other hand, they never had problems with me and my sister playing with the same toys. So she liked playing with my cars, and I liked playing with rings and dolls, and I had no problem switching to cars. But in many cases of young people who are considered transgender, it is based on what seems to be, at least to me, stereotypes, like cliches, right? So we have little children who have interests who are not classically male or female, and this is used as a proof, as a piece of evidence that they are of the opposite sex.
Yeah, and you can even look at the clinicians. So in America, we have a lot of these child gender clinicians, and they'll give presentations about how they know that a boy is really a girl. And it's all about stereotypes. There's one where she's talking about a little girl, a patient who's a little girl, but the little girl doesn't want to wear berets in her hair. Or the yes. Little girl doesn't want to wear a dress. And this is all, like, this doctor is saying that this is all the evidence that this little girl is really a boy inside. So it's like, it's all about these stereotypes. It's so ridiculous when you sit down and think about it.
I think it's double ridiculous when you think that the same people who say that a little girl who doesn't like dresses is somehow secretly a boy, the same people will say that they want to smash the patriarchy, they want to destroy oppressive structures, right? Power to women, women power, women's rights. But then, if a little girl does something, let's say, unusual for little girls, then she's a boy. Don't you think that, I suppose you do, but these are double standards, right? This is doublethink.
It looks like doublethink, but if you actually, like, understand the ideology, it makes sense to them. Because they don't, like, the way they see it, and I know this because I used to think this way, the way they see it, it's like, the body doesn't matter. Like, it's like, it's not a bad thing to change someone's body, to, like, give these medications to a child. Like, they don't see that as being dangerous. And they kind of see it like, well, if you ascribe the gender to the body, that is worse than ascribing gender to the personality. So if someone is able to, if someone is non-conforming, then it's easier to just tell them that they're a boy. Or, like, if a girl is non-conforming, it's more liberating to just tell her she's a boy and change her body than to make her grow up in a society where people will think that she's different.
But then it is not easy to actually change the body.
Yeah, that's the problem.
In some cases, it's actually not possible. It might be possible in very distant future, but right now it's not possible to actually turn a girl into a boy or a boy into a girl. So where do you think do these ideas come from? Because, like, imagine a little child, an 8-year-old, sitting in front of a computer and then because I guess that's where they get the first ideas from, and then the little child thinks, I can actually be a girl, but then no, you cannot actually. Where do these ideas come from?
The idea that you can change a child from...
Yes, that is possible.
Yeah.
That your body is so elastic, so malleable, so changeable, that you can actually change it.
It's hard. I think it comes from a place of just like overconfidence in science. Like it's like this idea that, oh, the body doesn't matter, nature doesn't matter, we can control nature because we have these surgeries and hormones and medications. But it's just really disconnected from reality. And I think that these people know that, and that's why they try to suppress all of the evidence that this is dangerous and it's going to hurt these kids.
One of my explanations is that what people see is already directed by selective bias or selection bias. So we can tell by looking at studies that young people, especially young girls, spend more and more time on Instagram, on social media, and what you will see on Instagram is not somebody who's an average person who's gone through transition, but they will see Elliot Page or Ellen Page, somebody who's a millionaire, an actress from California, I think, who has had so much money and so much time and effort to put into her or his or their transition, that what children see is actually a lie.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like on social media, the trans influencers, I think they're a big problem, but it's like the algorithm isn't going to make someone popular who isn't attractive, who doesn't know how to produce a good video, who doesn't have, chemistry on a screen, who isn't charismatic. But the people who are charismatic, who do know how to produce a video and who are attractive, they're the minority of transitioning people. So young kids like myself, when I was 14, like I'm looking on YouTube and I'm seeing these trans influencers, but I'm only seeing this specific type of like attractive, well-produced person. I'm not seeing all the trans people who are on drugs and how their life is completely falling apart. I'm only seeing this really glamorized version of the minority of people.
Yes, but here we made a jump, right? You said when you were 11, you remember explicitly thinking, hey, I'm a girl, it's actually fine, or even more, it's impossible to be something else. Mm-hmm. And then you say when you were 14, 3-4 years later, you were already looking at trans influencers online. What changed in that time? What happened?
Yeah, so I started using social media, and for me, that was a website called Tumblr. Tumblr isn't as popular as it used to be anymore, but...
I remember Tumblr.
Yeah, when I was like 13, 14, 15, it was really popular among like girls who had, interest in like books and TV shows and celebrities and stuff. So I was using Tumblr.
For boys it was pornography, basically. Yeah. So there was a weird mix. It was something like, come in, we have all these very geeky, very interesting stuff, but then if you click one click more, you will discover hardcore pornography as well. So I think that's an aspect as well, but please go on.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It creates a very weird mix that I think is confusing to say the least for a young teenager. But on Tumblr, like this ideology about gender, about race, about like the progressive kind of left ideology was very, very popular to the point where it was kind of necessary. Like you really had to repeat these ideas and agree with these ideas. or else you would be, ostracized and attacked and stuff like that. So I started adopting those beliefs, and a part of that culture was just encouraging exploring your gender. Like people would say, if you don't like your body, that's a sign that you're trans, and you should go watch these trans videos to decide if you're trans. Or if you feel like you don't fit in, that's a sign that you're trans, and you should read this article about how this means that you're trans. Like it's really pushed on you. Like it's really encouraged to question yourself, to change your pronouns. Even if you don't know if you're trans, what's the harm in changing your pronouns just to see how it feels? And then when you do question things or you do change your pronouns, then you get all of this positive attention. So it wasn't like one day I just woke up and decided I want to be a boy. It was like I was doing these things like researching and watching these videos and going through my memories, trying to figure out if there was any signs that I was actually trans. And then I was getting so much like positivity and attention for it. So it created this loop where I would do something, I'd get attention for it. That would change how I saw myself. And then over the course of about 2 years, I went from being, just exploring my gender to saying, oh, I want to be a boy now.
It might be a weird comparison, but in Catholicism, in the New Testament, there is this idea, it seems like a shocking idea at first, that betrayal starts in your heart. It's something about Jesus saying that if a man betrays his wife, then he does it not by sleeping with other women at first. It's by looking and coveting other things. It's experimenting with the idea. I could betray her. I could go astray. So would you say, I know it's not one-to-one comparison, but for example, thinking about sex with other women, it's not really having sex with other women. And thinking about something isn't really doing that, but changing your pronouns. Mm-hmm. Hey, it's not a therapy. It's not, it doesn't really do anything, but this is the first step that opens up. It's like people call marijuana, for example, a gateway drug, I think, in English. But then, isn't it like that? It's like step by step. You start with the very idea that it could be, that you could be a boy.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, there's so many steps like that. Like you could either, change your pronouns, or you could change your profile picture to a picture of your favorite male celebrity. And people will say like, oh, it's okay to do that. Like that, that's a good thing to do. But also, if you want to change your picture to a picture of a male celebrity, that's a sign that you're trans. And so it's kind of like this like overthinking of everything.
So it's a positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Whatever you do reinforces the idea of you actually being trans. And then you think you are trans, so you do even more of the things that people would do if they were transgender.
Yeah, exactly. And like, teenagers are curious, so it's like, if these people online are telling you like, oh, you should do this, it's okay to do this, there's nothing wrong with doing this. For example, maybe you play video games and you've always played with the female character and you've never really thought twice about it. But then now people online are telling you, you should experiment with playing with the male character, or vice versa for a young boy. And then as a curious teenager, you're like, oh, okay, I'll play the male character. But then those people come back and say, oh, this is a sign that you're trans. The fact that you played with the male character is a sign that you're trans. So it's kind of like they push you into this experimenting, and then they come back and make you feel like you did that. You chose to do that yourself, and it's a sign that you're trans.
So I would say it sounds to me, it's like a trap, and I don't mean it in this case. Like there is a double meaning to traps, right? No pun intended. I actually did intend it. I always try to. But then, because per se, like, if somebody might be listening to us and thinking, oh my god, there is nothing wrong with fantasy, right? Mm-hmm. Because there isn't.
There's not.
I loved reading when I was a teenager, and I loved the Harry Potter books, and the person the strongest identified with was Hermione, because I liked learning, and Hermione is a cool person in the books, but I never actually went this one more step of thinking I could actually be another Hermione, meaning I could be a girl. So it seems to me like a trap. So, like, try this out. You try it out, and then since you have tried this out, it means that you are trans, right?
Yes, exactly.
But then, what were you doing at the age of 14 on Tumblr? Why were you not somewhere else, doing something else with your friends?
Well, so I always kind of was more introverted for sure. And when I was maybe 13 years old, I just kind of drifted away from my friends. We got assigned to different classes and we just stopped talking as much. And I just really receded inwards, and I just started spending more time by myself. I wasn't, making many friends at school. And so I was really lonely. And so in that time of my life, I started using Tumblr a lot more. And that's when I realized that, like, I felt like I didn't need to go through all the awkwardness of trying to make friends in real life. I could just have these friends who were already on Tumblr, and it was easy to be friends with them because we had the same interests. Like, we could both just talk about Harry Potter. We didn't have to talk about our lives and, get to know each other because everything was right there. The person posting on social media, like, they post everything that they're interested in. They post all of their opinions and everything. So you kind of like, who you're talking to, and there's not the awkwardness of like getting to know a stranger in real life, which was really scary and difficult for me. So I just started relying a lot on Tumblr for socializing. And I ended up making a lot of friends, and I just preferred to talk to people online over trying to make friends in real life.
I know what it's like, and I imagine it's way easier to find people online that you click with, because you can also click them out in the sense that if you dislike something, then you can end the relationship very abruptly, right?
Yeah.
So a real person is still there, and you have to like move away, like you have to physically stop being around somebody.
Yeah.
And if you don't like somebody online as a teenager, you just block them, and that's it.
Yeah.
So you will never be confronted with opposing opinions.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But then 14 years old is, as much as I understand, the same time when girls go through the most intense part of puberty. So I've never actually been a girl, but I talked to women because I wanted to understand what it's like. When you're a boy, you also go through pre-puberty, but I think it's less intense on your body. It is more intense on your psyche, in the sense that you are very angry all the time. You hate all the adults. They are all fucking stupid. It's like, you know it all. You figured it out. Everything annoys you. And then you get a bit hairy here and there. And that's it. That's your male puberty. You grow up, you get hairy, and you get angry. That's being a boy who's getting into being a man. But then, from what I've heard from women who I talked to about this topic, is that your body suddenly becomes not what you know. Your breasts are growing.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's so easy for girls. Mother Nature comes in, takes your hand and says, here we go, now you will become a woman. Do you think going through puberty and disliking your body played a role in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And to give some context, I always had a difficult time with my body. So my family works in the beauty industry. So I always grew up with, seeing or being told like, what is a nice body? What is a bad body? Like, what is ugly? What is beautiful? And so I had this really black and white kind of view of physical appearance. And I took that really personally. And so I was, from a very young age, hypercritical of my body and really self-conscious and really uncomfortable in my body. And then the thing about like female puberty is that your body is developing, but it doesn't all develop in like a straight line. It's like you grow in one place and then you don't grow in another place. And then later you grow in this place and then you don't grow in that place. So it's like you don't look like an adult woman. You look awkward and kind of like, or at least you feel like you look very awkward and like just things are not right. You don't look like a child, but you don't look like an adult woman either. So I remember feeling like I look like a mutant. Like I felt that way. And so I think that's something that maybe a lot of girls go through, where it's like you're being told by the media, and in my case, my family, like this woman's body is what is beautiful. So when you're an adult woman, you have to look this way to be beautiful. But then as a teenager, you look awkward and you have like one boob is bigger than the other. And it's just like, you're like, oh my God, like I'm not matching this ideal.
And then again, there are other girls, right, who already kind of went through their puberty and they look great. And then there are you still not done. And then it's like, when will it finish? When will it be done with me?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just such an awkward thing. So I think girls in that age are really susceptible to anything about their bodies. And then when you think about the trans ideology, it's coming in and saying, if you don't like your body and if you don't like puberty, that means that you are a different sex. That means you are the opposite sex. And of course, as a teenager with boobs that are different sizes and like hips that are too big for the rest of my body and all this stuff. Of course I was like, oh, I don't like this. I guess that means I'm not a girl.
But this is, I think, like one of the keys to understanding transgenderism, the concept of bodily or gender dysphoria, right? Because it's a very, very vague concept. From what I know, there are mental illnesses where people either consider parts of their body not to be parts of their body. I think it's called dysmorphophobia. And then there are people with other disturbed ideas, but the idea of disliking your own body, if this is what gender dysphoria is, then most of humanity have gender dysphoria.
Yeah, exactly. Especially young people, where it's like you're growing and it's like a very uncomfortable period and you haven't really you haven't grown into yourself. Like now as an adult woman, I think my body looks so much more normal than I did when I was 14. But that's because I grew into my body. But as a 14-year-old, like you haven't done that. So I think especially girls, I'm sure there's a lot of boys too, like everybody at a young age doesn't like their body. But the thing about the ideology is it like encourages you to reframe how you think about it. So before I found the gender ideology, I might have looked at my body and thought, oh, my hips or my thighs or something, they're out of proportion, which means that I'm fat. Like I need to lose weight so that my body will be back into proportion and I will feel normal again. But then the gender ideology comes in and tells you, oh no, it's not because you're fat. It's because your the wrong sex. And if you just looked like a boy, then you would feel normal.
Yeah, I think it's even more complicated because they say something like, you are the wrong gender. At some point in the development of gender ideology, they split the two into separate categories. Mm-hmm. And for a very, very long time, we heard, yes, okay, there is two sexes. This is fine. This is true. But then some people are born with the wrong gender, meaning that they have the wrong personality. It's a bit like a soul, like the wrong soul in the wrong body. Yeah. And then that's why we change the body so that you are more happy with it. Mm-hmm. But internally, this is a disorder. And 10 years ago, at least in Poland, in Europe generally, nobody thought that trans women are real women. But a few years ago, at least in Europe, it must have been about a decade ago in the US, they made a switch. They said something like, no, sex actually either doesn't exist, or it doesn't matter, or it also is a spectrum. Mm-hmm. And it is the sex that it's wrong and the gender that's correct, right? Yeah. So now it's like we adapt the body to the body is wrong. What you think, what you feel is right. And then, of course, the funny question poses itself. How can a man feel like a woman if he's never actually been a woman? Yeah. So, I think there was a switch in the ideology. But then, please tell me, how did it start being serious? Because you were on Tumblr, that's where you got the ideas, that's how you got into the community, and I imagine within the community, everybody agreed with you, and you agreed with everybody. Yeah. But then more happened, right? You started taking testosterone.
Yeah, so for the first maybe 2 years of being on Tumblr and, doing the changing my pronouns, cutting my hair, just experimenting, it was really like almost just for fun. Like I wasn't taking it. I mean, I was taking it seriously. I was that typical teenager, of I'm right about everything. Except, maybe for boys, it's like they get angry and they feel like they're right about everything. But for girls, it's more like I'm right about everything. And if you disagree with me, I'm going to cry and like threaten to kill myself. So, yes, because I think, psychologically, puberty is very hard on teenage girls too, but maybe in a different way where we have more like emotional ups and downs. And I think a lot of like teenage girls, they're not aware that this is happening. They just think that, all of a sudden everything is horrible. And they don't understand that it's like your hormones are making everything feel so horrible. So I think that's another aspect to why someone like me might have taken the gender stuff so seriously, because my hormones would come in and make me just freak out. And then I would look for a solution. And then the gender ideology would be there to tell me the reason you feel like this is because you're in the wrong body, and that if you change your body, you will feel normal. So I think that's another angle to it. But, so I was just kind of playing around with it. I was very serious ideologically, but I wasn't thinking, I'm going to take testosterone. But then after about 2 years, that's when I started really connecting the discomfort and hatred that I had for my body with the gender ideology. And so I started really thinking, okay, I hate my body, and it looks like to my teenage brain, the only solution is to transition. And so I had this very like black and white thinking about it. And that's when I got very serious about starting the testosterone. And I wasn't able to do it until I turned 18. And then literally a week or two after I turned 18, I went and I got the testosterone. And in America, it's very easy. You just walk into a Planned Parenthood and they'll give you the testosterone.
In Poland, people think that it's very, very hard and objective to be, let's say, certified as a transsexual. So people imagine that you have to go through very, very many steps. You have to go to a psychologist, psychiatrist, and to other doctors. And technically, this is true. You have to go to specialists in Poland so that you will be given your first hormones. But there are special forums, there are special groups on Facebook, on Discord, where there are trans activists, and they create lists of people, of specialists, to whom you just go and say, hey, I am a girl, but actually I'm a boy. And after just 1 hour of talking to you, they will give you all the addresses of people that you have to contact, and I would say it's possible that within a few days, within a week or so, you will be put on hormones, especially if your parents are left-leaning, progressive, they will support you, then it's super easy. But then, from what you say, it's even easier in the US. So you just go to a doctor and say, I want testosterone.
It's not even a doctor. It's just like a nurse.
Oh.
Like you just go to like... Yeah, it's such a mess. Like, yeah, I didn't even have to wait a week. I got my first injection within an hour of that first appointment. So
within the first hour?
Yeah, I just turned up to the clinic, handed them $200 cash, and they gave me my prescription and helped me do my injection. Basically. So this is what the so-called informed consent works, right? They have you read a little paper that says, oh, you might have high cholesterol or whatever, and then you sign the paper and they give you your hormones. So,
did you even know what the consequences could be? Real consequences?
I had a child's view of it. I had a very immature, naive understanding. I thought like, oh, because the only thing that they really told me about, and the only thing the trans community is willing to admit is a risk, is, you might have a higher risk of heart disease or something like that. But I just thought, oh, so I'll just be like a regular man because men have higher rates of heart disease than women. I was like, yes. I'll deal with that when I'm 60 years old. I don't need to deal with that now. So I kind of had this...
Young people, they always think they will be young forever.
Exactly. So I didn't really understand. And also with like the emotional effects, because that's what ended up being the most consequential for me, was the psychological effects of the testosterone. But they don't, first of all, I don't know if there's a way to tell a woman and make her understand how testosterone feels, because as a woman, you don't have that experience. Like, we don't have those high levels of testosterone, and it's just not something that a woman will understand. We don't have anything to compare that with in our lives. So, but I think they could have done a better job, because all they told me was that I might have irritability and I might have mood changes. That's all they told me.
Yeah.
And then when I actually took the testosterone, it was like being hit with a truck.
So, I went through my own male puberty, and I remember that, and my body kind of, this is what it wanted, right? This is what a male body produces naturally, and this is what we are actually. So I remember being angry for many years, and everything irritates you, and you are prone to violence. But then, of course, if you have a stable family, and if you go to normal school, then as a boy, you learn how to control your aggression.
Yeah.
You are always told, don't, like, be careful, like, you will be angry, you will be mad, and you will have to learn how not to hit people.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you will hit people and you will become a criminal. There is a real danger whilst growing up, especially with an absent father. This is what studies show, that you actually will become a criminal just because you never learn to socialize, and you never learn how to control your testosterone level.
Yeah.
And what I observe with women who consider themselves transsexual and who think that they are trans men, when I observe them online, to me, they are super vulgar. They are super aggressive, and their tweets or their Facebook posts are full of threats. Mm-hmm. So it's, I'm gonna kill you. I'm gonna turn you in, like, I'm gonna crush your bones. And these are real quotes from people who have threatened me or my feminist friends. I will crush your bones. We will dissolve your body in acid. We'll get rid of you.
Yeah.
Was it a bit like that for you? Were you feeling angry, aggressive all the time?
Yes, it was pretty intense. I can't remember what I was like online because honestly, I started not using the internet as much while I was going through this because it was just I couldn't focus on social media drama because I was so concerned with just like keeping myself alive. Because it was just so overwhelming for me. But yeah, I definitely remember like it started with irritability. And it was like you said, it was like everything pissed me off. I literally I would I would drop a pencil on the floor and I'd just be like, oh, I'm gonna punch this pencil. I'm gonna break the pencil. So I was just bugging out. I was going insane. And it just kind of kept getting worse because another thing about my testosterone prescription was that they didn't start me on like a low dose and then work up. They started me on the maximum dose. So,
but why?
Because that's just the ideology in these clinics where it's like, oh, you have bodily autonomy. You can have whatever you want. If you want to start on the highest dose, we'll give you the highest dose because that's your right.
Yes, but look, for example, if you have a headache, I live in Germany. I spend most of my time here and like 30% of it in Poland. If you go to a doctor here in Germany, if you have a headache, they will give you like a prescription for the lowest dosage of ibuprofen. So like they will be careful when administrating, when giving you like very basic medicine. Yeah. But to me, it seems like they don't care when it comes to transgender cross-sex hormones. It's like the more the better.
Exactly. That's definitely the attitude, at least in some of these clinics in America where, they just think, if you want to have a high dose, good for you. We'll give you the high dose. So, and that's like when I told them at my appointment, they suggested starting on a lower dose. But then I said, I think that I need a higher dose because my thighs are big. So I think that I have more estrogen and so I need more testosterone. And they just like didn't question that at all. They were just like, okay, here you go. Here's the highest dose. So it just like, I did not know what I was in for.
So let's go back a bit, step by step. At the age of 14, you get a bit socially awkward, like people do at this age. Mm-hmm. You go a lot online. You discover Tumblr and then become a member of the online gender community, transgender community. Mm-hmm. Then at the age of 18, as soon as you get, do you become a legal adult?
Yeah.
By this age?
Yeah.
Yes. And then as soon as you can do it, you go to a doctor. It's not actually a doctor. It's a nurse. And then you tell her, I'd like to be a boy, and then they not only give you enough to start a transsexual transition, but they even give you more testosterone than was prescribed than it should be.
4 times more than they should have.
4 times. Yeah. I'm laughing not because I'm finding it funny in like a pleasant way. It's a bit like, I don't know if it's an apt comparison, but
it's absurd.
It's more than a Monty Python sketch.
Yeah.
It's like look, I think that if people as adults want to go for a transition, even though I don't agree with the idea of changing your sex, I think it's a problem. I think, honestly, it's a mental thing, let's say. But if you do it with your own money, if you go to a psychiatrist, if you know the risk, if you have been consulted properly for some time, good, it's your own body. I actually agree with the idea of bodily autonomy. But there should be, at least at some point in this process, somebody who says, look, maybe you're wrong.
Yeah.
Have you ever met somebody like that? Did you ever meet people like that at this time?
The only people who were saying that was my parents. And
What did they say?
Well, they were very, I think, overwhelmed with all of this. So I told my mom personally, and she, first of all, she's not the most emotional person. Like, she's a very kind of like type A, kind of like straight to the matter person. So I think that she was very overwhelmed when I told her, and she reacted with a lot of anger. Which I understand, but I think it made things worse at the time. And my dad, on the other hand, I think he just kind of avoided it. Like, he talked to me about it like 1 or 2 times, but it was just short conversations, and we didn't really talk about it. And I just don't think my parents knew how to handle it, but they definitely were against me transitioning. But everyone else, like, my school counselor, my school psychologist, they were encouraging me. Everyone online was encouraging me. And the nurses that I saw when I actually went to transition, they didn't push back at all. So, yeah.
What did you tell your parents exactly?
Yeah.
That you were transitioning, that you wanted to be a boy, that you thought yourself to have been born in the wrong body? What was it exactly?
Yeah, I remember telling my mom, like, I am a boy, and my name is trans name, and you can call me he, him pronouns, and I'm going to start testosterone.
Like, in one go, it was one day that you informed them.
Yeah, it was.
That's quite a bit, right?
I know, and so I think that's why they were just so overwhelmed and didn't know like what to say or what to do. So my mom especially just kind of reacted very emotionally with anger, which, like I said, I understand, because what else are you supposed to do when your daughter, who's about to turn 18, is telling you, like, I'm a boy and I'm going to take testosterone?
Would you say you had been disconnected from your family for some time? I mean, because, like, if your parents know you very well, if your parents take part in your life as a teenager, then they would have seen warning signs, like red flags, right? Like, there is something wrong with our daughter. She's been upset recently. What was it like?
Yeah,
before you told them? That's
the thing with my family. Like, we weren't close. There was a lot of disconnection. And yeah, I didn't talk to them about anything that was going on in my mind or in my life. And they didn't really ask or pay a lot of attention. So I was just on the internet getting totally brainwashed, and my parents didn't really notice.
And then it was the same that happened on the internet happened in your school as well, because you said your school counselor never had anything against it, right? It was like, you go girl, you go boy. Mm-hmm. So would you say there is, like, I understand there are people who might have lasting or permanent problems with their gender identity. But then how do you sort them out? How do you divide people who actually might have mental issues from people who temporarily, because they are teenagers, dislike their body?
Yeah.
I think it's a huge problem that you are just being pushed on in the same direction by everybody.
Yeah, that's where I think that, like, minors should not be able to have any, like, there should be no, here in America, they call it gender affirming care, which is where they just agree with you.
Which would be the opposite, right, actually?
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think that should be happening at all. I think that a minor should have, like, proper exploratory family or family therapy to, help them work through this and become more comfortable with their body. And then for adults, I think that, like you said, there needs to be just a more involved process where a person actually has to go build a relationship with a specialist and, do therapy and figure out like where their feelings are coming from so that they can make a better decision about what they want to do with their body, which is the total opposite of what we have now, where it's just like, even in Poland, I think that, obviously your medical standards are very different from the US, where technically people are supposed to go through a process and talk to multiple doctors and stuff like that. But underground, there's all these doctors getting away with just prescribing hormones like candy. Like, I think the Polish government should crack down on that. And
I agree.
Yeah.
The problem is it's such a niche, such a like micro problem, it would seem right now, right? So that people don't even know about it. And it's just like you said, theoretically, you have to go through a lengthy process.
Yeah.
But when it's not even very hard to find out. You log on to Facebook, you create a profile that very clearly suggests that you are transgender, you put pronouns into it, and then people are suggested to you who are already adult and who have transitioned. And then I would argue that transsexualism or transgenderism is actually multiple different things. So you will have people from a very early age on who have a disconnect from their body, and these are very often people who will later on in life live as homosexual men, and they convince themselves, since they hate the idea of being gay, they convince themselves that they are actually women. This is the first group. Then you have adult men who are AGP, autogynephiliac. I don't know how you pronounce. I never. How do you say it in English?
That's right. Autogynephilia.
Autogynephilia. So these are men who find erotic pleasure and satisfaction in assuming the female role. This is something, I don't know if we will be censored for using it, but this is something that would have been called transvestitism some decades ago.
Yeah.
And then you have girls who go through puberty, who have a disconnect from their body because it's a natural part of going through puberty. And as Abigail Schreier points out in her book, Irreversible Damage, the numbers of people who consider themselves transsexual have changed completely. So transsexualism or transgenderism used to be something very typically male. Even if you say to somebody transvestite, transgender, if it's somebody older, they will typically imagine a man, a guy, a dude. But now, since there are these online communities that offer you love, let's say, acceptance, friendship, now we have huge numbers of girls who are somewhat socially awkward, but suddenly they identify as transgender.
And I think also there's one more category. There's butch lesbians. Who are both teenagers and adults who are getting caught up in this because it's like they actually can look back at their life and say, oh, as a child, I felt really uncomfortable with the female gender role, and I, preferred boy toys and like I like to dress in a masculine way. And so they're also getting really caught up in this.
Yes. There might also be yet another group, and this group would be people who consider themselves non-binary, and they might be a mix of other people as well, of other groups, subgroups, because some of them will have never developed a stable identity. Mm-hmm. There is a very high connection to mental problems, ADHD, with autism, with other mental problems. Autism is big, yeah. And then maybe it's like people who are autistic are being overdiagnosed as transsexual.
Yeah. 100%.
I think that's a problem.
Yeah, and even the data shows that. It's that like a huge percentage of people who identify as trans are autistic.
True. I don't know what the trans activist explanation for it is. Is it just a coincidence?
Basically. Yeah, it's just a coincidence.
Okay. Just happens like that. Okay, I understand. But then, to go back to your story, for how long did you take testosterone? And did it have worse effects on you than just being mad and angry and aggressive?
Yeah, I took it for about 1.5 years. And it did have some pretty serious effects on me. Thankfully, not physically very much. I got really lucky in that I didn't develop any health problems, but I think that if I was on it for longer, I definitely would have developed some health problems, because you see in a lot of women, they start developing health problems at around like 3 years, is when you can start having some, issues with like the reproductive system, because the tissue literally dies. Like when you're a woman on testosterone and like your reproductive organs, they need the female sex hormones. And when you're just pumping them full of testosterone, that tissue will literally start to die, like inside your body. If anybody wants to look it up, there's a woman who identifies as transgender who talks about this, Buck Angel. You know Buck Angel? Buck
Angel is a porn actor.
Yeah.
And Buck Angel is one of the first persons who were popular, who became mainstream. And I will tell you my suspicion. I think Buck Angel is actually on the side of biorealism, of essentialism. Mm-hmm. I saw a picture of him with gender critical activists yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
And a year ago, he said something like, "I know I'm actually a woman."
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thankful to modern medicine, which allows me to live as a female, as a woman. But then I actually know it's just because of medicine. And then he was attacked very, very viciously by the trans community.
Yeah, Buck Angel is definitely more on like the gender critical side. But if you look at Buck's story, he talks about how he had almost killed him. Like the testosterone almost killed him. So. Oh,
I never knew that.
It's horrible. Like, maybe I can send it to you after we record, but, yeah, it's like he literally almost died, had to have multiple surgeries because his reproductive system was rotting and dying inside his body. And then he was going into septic shock because the organs were dying.
I know that the common problem of F2Ms, of trans men, is that since you take testosterone, you have problems with penetration because your vagina is shrinking, and then you cannot actually become moist, if that's the word we want to choose now. But this is something very natural to females. All mammals, it's like nothing special. But then if you kill off your organs, then they die off. So, but I never knew that it's actually so terrible that even your internal organs that they die off.
It can be really dangerous, and a lot of that's the thing. Around 3 years, a lot of women who take testosterone, they start having severe pain in their reproductive organs, and then the solution is just to have a hysterectomy and just take all the organs out. That's why you don't
look. But look how tricky it is. I must tell you, I never was interested in transgender topics until 3 years ago. I was invited onto a TV program because I came out as a conservative gay, and then I told them, I'm fine with only heterosexual couples adopting children, but I would like to have civil partnerships. I think that there is a problem with homophobia in Poland, but it's not as bad as it's portrayed on the media. We should talk about it. We can go rationally through it as a nation. We should talk about it basically as adults. But I also said that I think that there are only two sexes, and if a guy thinks he's not a guy, then he's mentally ill. And ever since I said that, a campaign of hatred started against me, and it never ended, and it's been going on. And this is why I informed myself on these cases, on whatever can be known, I think, when it comes to the transgender community. And I have been spying on them for the last 3 years. I have been reading on the stuff, but even I never ever found this piece of information that you get severe pains as a woman taking testosterone. I'm not saying I'm an expert on everything, and I'm not saying that I know it all, but this means to me that lots of this information is kept secret.
Yeah, I think there's pressure to not talk about it. And there's even, there's some YouTuber, maybe I can try to find you that video, but it's a woman who has been transitioned, living as a man for a decade or something, made this video saying that the trans community needs to stop hiding this information because and was talking about how common it is for these women who identify as trans to just quietly get a hysterectomy and not talk about the pain and not talk about the atrophy, which is the word for when the tissue starts to die, and just, get their hysterectomy and then not talk about it.
You know what I find really nasty? In Poland, they have given cozy, cute names to the steps that you take. So you can have your breasts removed, you can have a phalloplasty, and then you can have your internal organs removed, right? Mm-hmm. And they call them jedyneczka, dwójeczka, trójeczka. So the little first one, the little second one, the little third one. It's cute little things that you can do. Or they call them topka. They call them topka when you remove your breasts. So it's a cute little thing. Nothing more.
It's similar in English. They say top surgery and bottom surgery.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think this is partially a result of them panically avoiding naming genitals. They call them something like inners and outers, or things that are in and out, because they hate the idea of penis being male and vagina being female. The funniest thing in Polish, because it's also very new, but I think it's funny in any language, is when they talk about female penises and male vaginas.
How does that sound in Polish?
kobiecy penis, męska cipka. Yes.
It sounds so silly.
It is silly. But then tell me how it stopped, because it definitely stopped, and you are living happily as you should be as a woman, and you don't take testosterone anymore.
Yeah.
How did it end?
Yeah, so the downfall started when the testosterone started making me so angry that I would just have these like meltdowns. And it was like I stopped being able to have like normal emotions. So like when something would happen that before testosterone maybe would have made me sad and I would have cried, on the testosterone, instead of being sad and crying, I would get angry and I would just want to like break stuff and like punch stuff. So I was really like overwhelmed with that feeling. And so it got so bad to the point where like I wanted to like externalize that anger so much, but I had no idea how to handle it. So instead of like breaking something or hitting something, I would kind of take it out on myself. And so I would have these kind of like meltdowns where I would do that, and basically hurt myself. And then one night, like I had one that was pretty bad and I actually injured myself pretty seriously. And so I had to go to the hospital. I had to go to the emergency room, and there they checked me into a psychiatric facility. And so that's like when it kind of started. Like I just, once I got out of that hospital, and I actually had to go again. So once I got out of the hospital the second time, I like really started thinking like, yo, this is not what I thought it would be. Because as a teenager, like I thought, oh, I'm going to take testosterone. It's going to turn me into like a cute boy and everything's going to be awesome. And I'm going to love my body and I'm going to feel so good. But then the reality of what happened was it just made me go insane. And I was a completely dysfunctional person. And so that's kind of what got me thinking like it was a reality check of like, this is extremely unhealthy. And so that started maybe a 6-month process of like progressively doubting more and more. And I stopped taking the testosterone every week. I would go 2 or 3 weeks without taking the testosterone. And then I started realizing like, oh, my emotions are getting so much better. I no longer feel this anger and I'm able to cry again, because I stopped being able to cry when I was on testosterone. And so that's kind of how that started. And then one day
I'm sorry, but when you say you stopped being able to cry when you took testosterone, does it mean that all your sadness, all your emotions just turned into anger?
Pretty much. Like and it was that, but also I just physically couldn't cry. So there were times when I would be so upset. And the thing about me is that when I'm angry, I cry. So that's what I always do. Whenever I get angry, when I'm in an argument, I just cry. But on the testosterone, I would feel like I really wanted to cry. And my body would be like, okay, it's time to cry. But just, it wouldn't happen. Like there's just, like, it felt like I was just blocked from being able to cry.
This is really scary and bizarre. Forgive me, but this sound like I would never expect that. This is really scary, I think.
Yeah, it's extremely risky to put someone who already has mental health issues into like that experience. Like it's just so not healthy. It's not good. And if you look on like, there's actually a lot of people, I don't know if it's every woman who takes testosterone has this, but it's a relatively common thing that you just can't cry anymore. And if you look on like detransition forums or like on FTM Reddit, like you'll see these young women talking about it, how they can't cry anymore now that they're on testosterone. And I think that's so dangerous because especially I think for women, crying is an important part of regulating your emotions. And then when you can't cry and you have the testosterone in your body making you angry, it's like, I think it's really destabilizing.
It is in a morbid, bizarre way fascinating what taking cross-sex hormones can do to your body, right?
Yeah.
Because for the very first time in human history, we are doing these things on a large scale. Mm-hmm. I understand that the first operations, the first transitions took place in the beginning of the 20th century, but these were very insular, very isolated cases. Mm-hmm. And what you've told me now, it sounds like I've never heard this before, but then I have been on these forums for 3 years, and even there I never found these informations, because whenever somebody in this group says something negative, mm-hmm. like I'm starting to doubt it. Look, people, there is problems. I'm bleeding from my wounds because I had my breasts removed and now I'm wearing my binder, and people, there is water in my body. I don't know what to do. These posts are either pushed down within the forum, yeah. or there is like a very important trans activist saying, look, the information you are looking for can be found here, and I'm closing this section for comments, mm-hmm. because it's not productive to talk about this.
Yeah.
So this information is being kept secret.
Or they just straight up delete it. Like, I know that's a problem on Reddit, especially, where it's like someone will post their doubts or their medical issues and they'll just delete it. And there's also a lot of the times, like, it's just so discouraged to talk about anything negative, to the point where there's another trans YouTuber, a female to male, named Jamie Dodger, who made a video about how she had bottom surgery, a phalloplasty, and it just like destroyed her life for a year. She had all these medical complications and there was horrible stuff, and she was talking about it, but every other sentence she would say, don't let this discourage you from getting surgery. You need to get your surgery, because even though I almost died, I'm still so happy that I got it.
Yeah, I'm sure you are, because you are alive and you could have died. But then what I observed recently, and this is something like me and a lot of like female activists were really angered by. There is a trans activist, clearly an AGP. It's a straight dude who role plays but calls himself a woman, and he takes it very seriously. He describes in a program. This program is the target group is mostly young people, mm-hmm. and he says that after bottom surgery, as a man, if you had your penis removed, or rather inverted into a vagina, your neo-vagina will basically work as a real vagina. And it's not true.
No.
This is just a lie.
Yeah.
There is no neo-vagina.
Yeah. It's the same with like the FTMs. I think phalloplasty is a lot less common because it's more obviously fucked up. But I mean, you see the same thing. It's like all these women, like they get the phalloplasty and then they say like my penis. And it's like, you don't have a penis. You have a flesh tube of fat and skin from your leg attached to,
or arm here,
or
they cut it from the arm,
or arm, and it's now attached to your closed vagina, and it doesn't get erections. It's
well,
not a penis.
You can produce a pseudo erection by having a special pump.
Yeah.
Pump, either mechanically pumping your penis, your skin sleeve, or you can have a mechanical pump inside your body that forces blood into a piece of skin that was removed from another part of your body. And if this is a penis, like, as a guy, and as a gay dude, as an expert somewhat in these cases, I'm very sorry, but this is not a penis.
It's a horror show. Like, it's horrible.
I know. It's Frankensteinian in a way. It's terrible.
Yeah.
But then your terrible story had a happy end, so it isn't terrible, right?
Yeah.
You noticed that not taking testosterone lets you go back to being you, actually. And then what happened afterwards?
Yeah, so basically, the moment where I really realized it was because someone I knew who I was in a close relationship with made a video of like pictures of us. It was like a montage, and it was over the last year and a half. And I got to see like in order how I changed from kind of looking like me to looking like this stranger person. And so just from seeing that, that's when like all the doubts kind of like, I couldn't repress it anymore. And I just admitted to myself that like, this is just a total mess. I don't want to do this anymore. I want to be normal. I want to be a girl. And that's when I like realized, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. And then from that point on, I didn't take any more testosterone. And I started the process of like, just going back to trying to feel normal. But it was really difficult because like at that point I looked kind of like almost like I kind of sort of passed as male. Like I could use the male bathrooms and everything. And I had like,
I saw your pictures, yes.
Yeah.
You had the good
mustache.
passing, as they say. Yeah, they say they say that they have a good passing. You had a good passing, that's true.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, am I ever going to look like a girl again? I was freaking out. And so I got like a wig, and I would wear this wig, and I would wear makeup, and I would like shave my face, and I felt like I was in drag. It was so uncomfortable. But yeah, just time passed, and my hair grew out, and my hormones balanced themselves, and the only thing now is just kind of like my voice is a little bit deeper than it used to be. And I get pain from talking for a long time. Like I'm already feeling the pain from this podcast, but
we'll be finishing soon.
Yeah, okay. No worries.
But then look, do you know Marlene Dietrich? Marlene Dietrich was a very famous German singer. She went to the US, and not unlike you, she was a beautiful woman with a deep voice, and people loved her. So I don't think personally you have a deep voice, deeper for a woman, but then you know yourself better. I wouldn't worry. Your voice is fine. And then do you feel fine mentally? Is it okay now after, well, what has it been? 3 years?
Yeah, 4 years actually. But, yes. it was really difficult for the first, like, I would say I only started feeling like I was actually starting to feel better a year ago. But for the first 3 years, it was just like a real uphill battle. I was just like really struggling, but now I'm starting to feel like I definitely feel like I'm growing. I've grown a lot, and I'm a much more like balanced and mentally healthy person. And I mean, I still have things to work on, but, and it, there's more improvement to be made, but I don't feel like I'm like I wouldn't even characterize myself as being depressed or anxious.
Yes.
Like I feel so much more normal. Yeah.
I'm very happy for you, but I'm also worried that since you are one of the most outspoken detransitioners in the world, I found you, I knew about you, and then we kind of talked like some months ago on Twitter, right?
Yeah.
I kind of can imagine, I do worry that, as they say, you get a lot of shit for what you do. Do you?
A little bit. I try to have fun with it. Like, fortunately, I have a lot of support. So I have, I have my boyfriend who's very supportive. I have all sorts of people in my life that are supportive. So it's like when something does happen, I just go talk to them, and Like, it's fine. And the other thing is that I really don't respect any of these like trans activists who come for me. So when they insult me or come after me, it doesn't feel like I'm being criticized by someone who matters. It's just like these people are really indoctrinated. They have so much denial in themselves. They have so much pain in themselves, and they're attacking me because they're really misguided, and I just don't take it personally. So I just kind of have fun with it. Like yesterday, this trans activist was attacking me, going through my old Facebook posts, trying to say that I was like I don't know if you have the word psyop, but it's a like that.
I know what it is. Yeah.
That like I am like some kind of CIA operation to take down trans people.
Maybe to people who don't understand, this is like saying that she's a part of a conspiracy theory. Like there is a special operation by some agency to destroy trans women. She's an insert. It's a bit like today I just posted to Twitter. Facebook just deleted me. I'm very pissed about it. I've lost contact with thousands of people, but I will be back. Yet on Twitter I posted today like a post about, like a comment about myself where LGBT activists say that I'm not gay. At the same time, they say that it's such a hell being gay in Poland, but on the other side, like a straight dude pretends to be gay for fun. Where is the but then I understand that in your case they will say you never were trans. This is all just like lies to hurt the already so oppressed trans community, right?
Yeah, just totally delusional. Like this person was tweeting, like taking screenshots of my Facebook post where I came out as trans and then where I said I was detransitioning. And they said that I came out as trans 4 days after the Pulse nightclub shooting. And that's
so what?
And that's evidence that someone like put me up 4 days after the Pulse shooting to fake a transition and fake a detransition and then attack trans people on conservative media.
So it's like a very classical post hoc ergo propter hoc, prompter, whatever, some fucking Latin proverb. It's like something happens after something else, ergo it means that the second thing was the result.
It's connected.
It's always connected, isn't it? It's like, and all people who say that they are trans, they are 100% trans. Trans women are valid. Trans women are women, trans men are men, but then whenever there is a transitioner, suspicious. Where is the evidence?
All trans people are valid until you detransition, which is when you become a federal agent.
But then, if I were you, I would go for the CIA. FBI, like, has been getting weak in the last decades. Go for CIA. It's much better. They've been having much more influence recently. But, then to end maybe on a positive note, because I think your story is a very positive one, what to do, when your friends, especially young friends, start to consider themselves transgender, or because that's even a bigger problem, I think. What to do if your children start to think that they were born in the wrong body?
Yeah. Oh man, I can imagine it's very difficult for parents in Poland, because it's already difficult for parents in English-speaking countries, but at least there are like some organizations that provide support and provide counseling for parents in this situation, but it's all English. So I can imagine that parents in Poland are very lonely and don't know what to do. And I hope that there are some Polish support groups, but I don't know. I haven't seen that. But yeah, I think that the most important thing is to talk to them with the goal of understanding, not the goal of persuading them to think differently, but just you want to like understand their thought process and build trust so that they will engage with you in an honest conversation. And then you can help them work through their thoughts so that they no longer have, such convoluted thoughts that they're getting from the trans community. And so I think that's really important for parents to not become argumentative and shut down and create an adversarial relationship where you're always fighting about gender, because that's what the trans community wants. Like they want the parents to be fighting with their kid. So anything that you can do to prevent that and just keep, a trusting relationship where you're talking to each other in an authentic way, that's really important. And then I also think it's really important for these kids to not necessarily be banned from using the internet, but to have like a fulfilling life outside of the internet so that they don't feel like they just have to spend 16 hours a day staring at their computers and their phones. And I think that's where it becomes a big problem, where someone like me, like I didn't have friends in real life. I didn't have hobbies in real life. I was just literally on the internet all the time. And I think that, parents, there's a lot that parents can do to help the child have an engaging life in the real community, in the real world, doing physical activities. And so they're not just stuck in their head thinking about gender all day.
So it might be true that the internet is the best and the worst discovery of humanity so far, right? But then, friends and real life. I know what you mean. It's like when you notice that your children are having these ideas, your first reaction might be an angry one, and an opposition, right, to something that's very clearly absurd.
Or fear.
Or fear, and then fear often results in violence or in anger. But then I think you have to take these ideas apart, step by step, especially with young children. Because if a boy says, "Mommy, I'm a girl now," what he actually means, I would like to play with the same things that my sister is allowed to play with. And it's fine to allow him to play with them, because after 2 days he will be bored and he will go back to his trucks, or he will discover something new. And when it's with teenagers, I'm a big supporter of sex affirmation, of sex affirming therapy. So I think you should actually explain to young people that this awkward period of puberty will pass on, will go away, and you will be very, very happy as a guy or as a girl. It will be great, actually. It's great to be an adult.
Yeah, that's like, it's so difficult though, because, the way teenagers think, it's like, shut up, mom, you're stupid, you don't understand anything. And then they're going to go back to their trans community and they're going to say, my mom told me that this is just a phase. And then their trans friends are going to say, yeah, your mom's an evil bigot and she hates you and she wants you to kill yourself. So I think that better than explaining is to, like I said, just talk, like just ask them questions. Like when your teenage daughter says, I'm a boy, like you can ask her, how long have you felt that way? Or how do you know that you're a boy? Or what's a boy? What do you mean you're a boy? Can you help me understand? And then just with every answer, just kind of continue asking questions without, cause I think like like I said, the worst thing that you can do is make your kid feel like they're being attacked and they have to like defend themselves. Cause that's when they're going to resort to just the cult thinking, like the canned dogma of the trans community. They're just gonna shut down and they're not gonna talk to you. So if you can be the one asking questions and encouraging that young person to think, I think that that's a lot more productive than trying to convince them of your point of view, because you have to understand that's not an adult. You can't really reason with them like an adult. They have a very emotional way of thinking. Like I was talking about earlier with the hormones. Like their hormones are literally making them irrational. So you have to like kind of make space for that and understand that they're not going to have the rational way of thinking that you do as an adult. They have this childlike way of thinking, and you have to kind of, have conversations that help them to think.
That's actually great advice, and remembering that children and teenagers are not actually adults, so you cannot always explain things to them in the way that you would explain it to your spouse, your partner, your colleagues at work. It's something that adults forget a lot. Helena, thank you very, very much for this interview. Thank you for talking to me and for all your wisdom and knowledge. It was a great pleasure.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, and I hope people learn a lot from this.
Także jeszcze raz dziękuję naszemu dzisiejszemu gościowi. Dziękuję Ci, Helena, za bycie z nami, za Twoją historię. I dziękuję wszystkim naszym słuchaczom za obecność na naszym pierwszym angielskim podcaście. To była Myślozbrodnia z Heleną i z Waldemarem. Zapraszam na następne odcinki. Do usłyszenia.